Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the warm embrace of a medieval bathhouse. Stone walls, flickering torchlight, and the unmistakable scent of sweat, wine, and mystery. You trudge through the heavy wooden doors, greeted not by soft robes or slippers, but by a bustling scene that feels like a Roman party crashed a Renaissance fair. There's laughter echoing off marble floors, people chatting in multiple languages, and somewhere nearby, someone is playing a lute. You were expecting something like a modern spa, but instead you stumbled into what looks more like a communal sauna, with extras, including possibly bloodletting. You probably won't survive this experience without at least one awkward encounter and maybe a minor infection. But hey, you came here for history, and history is exactly what you'll get. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're watching from somewhere cozy, drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to imagine people all over the world drifting off together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You glance around, trying to make sense of it all. The heat wraps around you like a thick blanket, and already your clothes feel too heavy. This isn't just a place to wash off the day's grime. It's a social hub, a medical treatment center, and sometimes even a marketplace rolled into one. And as you step further inside, you realize that nothing about this experience is going to be what you expect. The first thing that strikes you, besides the overwhelming warmth, is how naked everyone is. Like, really naked. No towels wrapped around waists. No strategically placed loofahs, just a sea of bodies in various states of exposure. You freeze mid-step, suddenly aware of every stitch of clothing still clinging to your skin. The person beside you, a middle-aged man with a beard and what looks suspiciously like dried mud on his legs, gives you a polite nod before plunging into the communal pool without so much as a modesty gesture. You glance around for a changing area, or at least some kind of robe rental stand, but there isn't one. This is it. Either you strip down like everyone else, or you stand out like a tourist in Times Square. And given that you're already sweating under your modern layers, staying clothed doesn't seem like a sustainable option. Historians still argue whether this level of nudity was purely cultural or if it had something to do with practicality. After all, fabric was expensive, and laundering it wasn't exactly easy. But here's the kicker. Nobody seems embarrassed. Children splash in the shallower pools, elderly men soak their joints, and a woman nearby is casually scrubbing her armpits with crushed herbs while humming a tune. There's no shame, no self-consciousness, just people doing what they need to do. You take a deep breath and start peeling off your clothes, feeling more than a little ridiculous. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember that medieval Europe actually had a pretty healthy attitude toward public bathing, at least until things took a turn later on, thanks to moral panic and the occasional plague scare. For now, though, it's all about comfort, camaraderie, and probably a few questionable hygiene choices. As you fold your shirt awkwardly and set it aside, someone hands you a small wooden token. For your belongings, they say with a smile, pointing to a rack where other items are stacked haphazardly. You wonder briefly if anyone ever forgets their socks, but decide not to dwell on it. Instead, you take another deep breath and step forward, ready or not for whatever comes next. The air is thick with humidity, and the stone floor beneath your bare feet is warm, almost comforting. A servant walks past, carrying a tray of steaming bowls filled with something fragrant, maybe broth, maybe some kind of herbal infusion meant to purify the body. You catch a whiff of rosemary and vinegar, a curious combination that somehow makes sense in this strange, soothing chaos. You pass through an archway into a larger chamber, where rows of benches line the walls and people lounge in various stages of relaxation. Some are talking, others are dozing, and a couple are getting massaged by attendants who rub scented oils into their shoulders. It's oddly peaceful, like a cross between a Turkish hammam and a medieval tavern, minus the drunken brawls, probably because most people are too relaxed to fight. You notice that there's no real separation between genders. Men and women bathe together, chatting freely, sharing drinks, and occasionally laughing at jokes you don't quite understand. This might be the biggest culture shock of all. In your time, mixed-gender bathing would raise eyebrows at best, lawsuits at worst. Here, it's just another Tuesday. You find a spot near a shallow pool and sit down carefully, letting the warm water lap at your knees. It's not quite hot tub temperature, but it's definitely more than lukewarm. The water is slightly murky, tinged with minerals and perhaps a touch of soap substitute, something made from ash and animal fat, if you recall correctly. You try not to think too hard about what else might be floating in there. A boy runs past, chasing a wooden hoop, nearly slipping on the wet floor. Someone laughs. Another person dips a ladle into a bucket and pours cool water over their head with a sigh of relief. There's a rhythm to this place, a gentle pulse of life that feels oddly meditative. And then, just when you think you've got a handle on things, a voice calls out, "Newcomer, would you like a facial?" You turn to see a woman holding a bowl of something green and gooey. She's smiling, but there's a gleam in her eye that suggests she's done this many times before, and not all of them ended well. You hesitate. Your modern brain screams hygiene concerns. Your adventurous side whispers, "When will you ever get this chance again?" Before you can answer, she scoops up a handful of the paste and starts rubbing it onto your face. It smells like mint and sulfur. It tingles. It burns a little, but somehow it also feels good. Well, welcome to the medieval bathhouse. Hope you like surprises. You sit there, sticky green paste on your face, and a growing sense of what have I gotten myself into, settling in your chest. The woman, your impromptu spa attendant, steps back to admire her work before giving you a thumbs up and disappearing behind a curtain, presumably to terrorize the next unsuspecting visitor. As the paste begins to dry, tightening around your cheeks and forehead like some medieval clay mask from a forgotten beauty ritual, you glance around again at the sea of bodies lounging, scrubbing, and socializing. It's not just the nudity that throws you off. It's how casual everyone is about it. There's no modesty here, no self-consciousness. Just people existing in their most basic form, soaking in warm water, chatting with neighbors, and occasionally getting slathered in questionable substances. You try to imagine walking into a modern-day public bathhouse and finding strangers casually lounging around completely naked. You'd either call the police or immediately turn around and walk right back out. But here, in this steam-filled chamber, it somehow feels normal, maybe even comfortable. Historians still argue whether this openness was purely cultural or if it had practical roots. Some suggest that in an era where clothing was expensive and laundry difficult, going without wasn't just acceptable, it was efficient. Others believe that communal bathing was tied to religious or medicinal practices, reinforcing the idea that the body itself was nothing to be ashamed of. Either way, by this point, you're committed, your clothes are folded, or as folded as they can be, on a wooden bench nearby, and your only protection from the world is the thin layer of drying herbal goo currently flaking off your nose. A man nearby catches your eye. He's sitting across from you, leaning back against the stone wall, eyes closed, looking thoroughly relaxed. He's middle-aged, with a thick beard and what appears to be a tattoo of a dragon curling up his arm. Tattoos weren't exactly common in medieval Europe, at least not among the general population, but sailors, mercenaries, and pilgrims often marked themselves with symbols for protection or good luck. You wonder if he's any of those things, or if he's just someone who really liked ink. He opens one eye, sees you staring, and gives you a small nod. "First time?" he asks, voice low and friendly. You blink. "Is it that obvious?" He chuckles. "Just relax. Everyone's nervous the first time. By the second hour, you'll forget you're even naked." That thought should be weirder than it is. And yet, as you sit there, the warmth of the room sinking deeper into your bones, you realize he might be right. The awkwardness has faded into background noise. You're not thinking about your lack of clothing anymore. You're just existing. Another man walks by carrying a tray of steaming cups. "Mulled wine," he offers, holding one out to you. "Good for circulation." You hesitate. Mulled wine sounds amazing, but you're already slightly overwhelmed by everything. The heat, the smells, the sheer experience of being here. Still, you take the cup. It's warm in your hands, and when you sip it, you taste cinnamon, honey, and something earthier. Maybe cloves? It's sweet, spiced, and utterly soothing. The man with the dragon tattoo leans forward slightly. "They say the baths cure everything," he says conversationally. "Gout, headaches, melancholy." You raise an eyebrow. "Melancholy?" He nods solemnly. "Absolutely. Nothing like a good soak and a glass of wine to chase away the blues." You take another sip and let the warmth settle in your stomach. He's not wrong. Across the room, a group of women are laughing over something one of them just said. Their voices rise and fall in a musical rhythm, punctuated by the occasional splash of water. A child runs past, chasing a wooden toy, nearly slipping on the wet floor before grabbing onto a pillar to steady himself. Somewhere nearby, a lute starts playing again, gentle, melodic, perfectly suited to the atmosphere. This place is more than just a bathhouse. It's a gathering spot, a place to unwind, to talk, to connect. In many ways, it's the medieval version of a cafe or pub, except instead of coffee or beer, you've got warm water and herbal pastes. And as you sit there, slowly becoming less and less aware of your own state of undress, you realize something strange. Despite all the weirdness, despite the unfamiliarity, despite the fact that you're covered in green gunk and drinking wine in a room full of strangers, you feel relaxed, maybe even peaceful. You finish your wine, set the cup aside, and lean back against the warm stone wall. The paste on your face cracks and flakes away, leaving behind slightly tingling skin. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of laughter, splashing, and music wash over you like the warm water around your legs. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought drifts through. This isn't so bad after all. You lean back against the worn stone wall, letting the last of the herbal paste flake off your skin like dried glue. The mulled wine is gone now, the cup resting empty beside you, and the warmth in your chest isn't just from the drink. It's from the slow, creeping realization that you might be starting to enjoy yourself. This place, bizarre as it is, has a rhythm to it, a kind of gentle, unhurried pulse. People come in, strip down, soak, chat, drink, laugh, maybe get slathered in something green. You do your thing, then move on. It's oddly soothing. You can almost forget that you're sitting in a room full of strangers who are, for the most part, entirely naked. Almost. You blink. They smile. And then, without warning, they kiss it. Not a quick peck, either. A full-on, lingering, lip-to-palm moment that catches you so off guard that you nearly knock over your empty wine cup trying to pull away. The man with the dragon tattoo chuckles quietly. "First time for everything," he murmurs. You stare at the attendant, who seems utterly unfazed by your shock. What was that?" you ask, voice slightly higher than usual. "They greet newcomers with a kiss," he explains, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. "It's polite." Polite? Since when is kissing someone's hand upon meeting them polite in a public bathhouse? Either way, you're not sure your modern brain is ready for it. The attendant releases your hand and gestures toward a doorway across the room. "Would you like to move to the next chamber?" they ask, their voice soft and inviting. You glance toward the archway they indicated. Beyond it, the steam is thicker, curling through the air like mist rising from a lake at dawn. The light is dimmer, the music softer, and the voices quieter, as if stepping through would mean leaving behind the chaos of the outside world entirely. Well, if you've made it this far, naked, kissed, and mildly confused, then why stop now? You nod, stand up carefully, the floor is slick underfoot, and follow the attendant through the doorway, leaving behind the laughter and splashing of the main hall. As you step into the next chamber, the temperature shifts slightly. It's warmer here, the air heavier, thick with the scent of herbs and something faintly floral. There are fewer people in this room, and those who are here seem to be lounging more than chatting. Some are reclining on benches, others are lying flat on their backs with eyes closed, soaking in the heat. The attendant leads you to a bench near a shallow pool and gestures for you to sit. Then, with the same calm efficiency as before, they dip the cloth into the wooden bowl, this one filled with something pale yellow, and begin rubbing it onto your shoulders. You inhale deeply. It smells like lavender and something citrusy, maybe lemon or orange peel. It's soothing, unexpectedly luxurious. "You should relax," the attendant says gently. "Let the warmth sink into your muscles." You try. You really do. You close your eyes, let your head fall back slightly, and allow yourself to sink into the moment. The warmth of the room, the softness of the scented oil, the distant hum of quiet conversation. It all blends together into something strangely peaceful. And somewhere, deep in the recesses of your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe, just maybe, you could get used to this. The scent of lavender and citrus clings to your skin as you sink deeper into the warmth of the second chamber. The oil still tingles slightly on your shoulders, but now it's more soothing than strange, like a massage from someone who knows exactly what they're doing. You glance around this new room, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light. Compared to the first chamber, which was bustling and lively, like a medieval cafe, this one feels more like a library after hours. Quiet, intimate, and filled with people who are clearly here for one thing: to relax. And yet, even in this calmer setting, there's something oddly luxurious about it all. The stone walls aren't just rough-hewn. They've been carved with intricate patterns, swirling vines and mythical beasts that seem to dance when the torchlight flickers just right. The floor beneath your feet is warm, not just from the heat of the baths below, but because of an ingenious system of channels built beneath the stone, carrying hot air through the building like veins pumping lifeblood. This isn't just a bathhouse, it's a palace of comfort. Historians still argue whether these elaborate designs were meant purely for relaxation, or if they served a deeper purpose, perhaps reinforcing social status or acting as a kind of early spa therapy. Either way, the effect is undeniable. Everything about this place is designed to make you feel good. As you lean back against the cool marble bench, your gaze drifts toward the pools themselves. There are several, each at different temperatures. One looks almost icy, another steams gently, and the one closest to you is just perfect. Warm enough to soothe tired muscles, but not so hot that it threatens to cook you alive. Nearby, a servant ladles water from one pool to another, adjusting the temperature with the precision of a chef balancing flavors. Another attendant walks past, carrying a tray of small clay bowls filled with some kind of thick, golden paste. Honey mixed with crushed almonds, perhaps? You catch a whiff of it as they pass. Sweet, nutty, and unexpectedly enticing. You weren't expecting gourmet skincare services when you walked in, but here we are. Across the room, a woman reclines on a cushioned bench, her head resting on a wooden pillow shaped like a crescent moon. She looks utterly serene, eyes closed, face lightly dusted with white powder that might be chalk or maybe rice flour. Either way, it gives her skin a soft, glowing sheen. A man beside her dips a cloth into a bowl of rose water and gently wipes her forehead, like a scene out of a Renaissance painting. It's strangely mesmerizing, and also completely baffling. Because while the layout of this place is undeniably beautiful, it's also wildly impractical by modern standards. There are no private stalls, no lockers for your belongings, no signs telling you how long you can stay in each pool. Just a gentle flow of people moving from one space to the next, guided more by instinct and tradition than any kind of formal rules. You try to imagine walking into a modern-day spa and finding no reception desk, no check-in process, no staff asking for your name or credit card. Just a warm room, a few attendants offering oils and herbs, and people drifting in and out like ghosts in a dream. You'd probably think you'd wandered onto a movie set, but here, in this medieval bathhouse, it somehow makes sense. The design itself tells you what to do, where to sit, where to soak, where to rest. It's intuitive, elegant, and surprisingly advanced for its time. In fact, some of the architectural techniques used here wouldn't look out of place in Roman bath complexes centuries older. The hypocaust system, the network of tunnels and vents that circulate heat, was originally developed by the Romans and later adopted by medieval builders who saw value in keeping their bathhouses warm without filling them with smoke. That's right. The very technology that once heated the grand baths of Emperor Diocletian is now warming your toes as you sit barefoot on the stone floor, trying not to spill mulled wine on yourself again. A soft splash pulls your attention back to the pools. A young boy has just jumped in, sending a ripple across the surface. He surfaces with a grin, hair plastered to his forehead, and immediately starts splashing a friend nearby. Their laughter echoes off the curved ceiling, mixing with the distant sound of a lute playing somewhere beyond the archway. You smile despite yourself. This place is nothing like you expected. There's no rush, no pressure, no need to keep up with anything except your own pace. Just warmth, water, and the occasional herbal facial that smells like sulfur and mint. And as you sit there, slowly becoming less aware of your lack of clothing and more aware of the quiet luxury surrounding you, you realize something. Maybe the medieval world wasn't as primitive as you thought. Maybe in some ways, it understood relaxation better than we do today. The laughter from the pool fades into a comfortable hum as you settle deeper into your spot on the bench. The warm air wraps around you like a blanket, and for a moment, you consider just closing your eyes and letting yourself drift off entirely. But then someone speaks. Did you hear about the bishop who bathed with 12 nuns? You blink, startled out of your near doze by the voice beside you. It's the man with the dragon tattoo again. Only this time, he's not alone. Seated next to him is another man, younger, with damp hair and a knowing smirk. You glance between them. What? The younger man chuckles. It's true, he says. Happened in Paris last year. You're not sure whether to laugh or question everything you thought you knew about medieval morality. They say he claimed it was for health reasons, the older man adds, sipping from a wooden cup. Purification, balance, that sort of thing. You stare at him. He bathed with 12 nuns for balance? Well, obviously it worked, the younger one quips. He lived to be 83. You snort, nearly inhaling a mouthful of mulled wine. And just like that, you realize something. People here don't whisper behind closed doors or murmur scandal in hushed tones. They talk, loudly, casually, like this is completely normal, because to them it is. Historians still argue whether these kinds of stories were exaggerated for entertainment or if they actually happened with alarming frequency. Either way, they were wildly popular and often repeated over drinks in places like this. As you listen, more voices join the conversation. A woman nearby recounts a tale about a nobleman who tried to impress his lover by bathing in rose oil and honey, only to discover too late that he was allergic. Another man insists he once saw a traveling monk give an entire sermon while floating in the warm pool, hands raised dramatically above the water. There's no judgment in any of it. No moral outrage, no eye-rolling, no, can you believe what he did? Just storytelling, camaraderie, and the occasional well-timed punchline. You lean back, letting the words wash over you like the warm water lapping gently at your legs. This isn't just a place to clean your body. It's where people come to share their lives, to gossip, to flirt, to vent, to laugh. In many ways, it's the medieval version of a cafe, or maybe even a therapist's couch, minus the confidentiality. Across the room, a group of women are deep in discussion, animatedly debating something involving a goat, a bishop, and a misplaced wedding ring. One of them gestures wildly, sloshing water everywhere, while the others dissolve into laughter. Nearby, A couple lounges side by side, shoulders touching, speaking softly enough that you can only catch fragments, something about land disputes and a new vineyard. And somewhere beyond the archway, the lute player has returned, plucking a cheerful tune that somehow blends perfectly with the low murmur of conversation. It's oddly soothing. You find yourself relaxing into it, listening without really trying to follow every thread. Some stories are long, some short, some are clearly embellished, others probably true. But all of them serve the same purpose: connection. A servant walks past carrying a tray of small clay bowls filled with thick, golden paste, honey mixed with crushed almonds, perhaps. You catch a whiff of it as they pass, sweet, nutty, and unexpectedly enticing. Someone offers you a spoonful, and you take it without thinking, letting the rich texture coat your tongue before swallowing. And somewhere, deep in the recesses of your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe conversation really is the best medicine. The scent of honey and almonds lingers on your tongue as you lean back against the cool marble bench, letting the warmth of the room seep deeper into your bones. The conversation around you flows like a gentle stream, sometimes bubbling with laughter, sometimes quiet and thoughtful, but always present, always alive. And then, just when you think you've experienced every possible medieval spa treatment this place has to offer, someone hands you a small clay bowl filled with something dark green and vaguely slimy looking. "Rub this on your chest," the attendant says with a serene smile. "It's good for the lungs." You stare at the paste suspiciously. It smells like mint, sulfur, and maybe crushed beetles. Welcome to Section 6, Strange Scents and Salves, where the medieval world's skincare routine gets very weird very fast. You take the bowl hesitantly, swirling the thick paste with the wooden spoon provided. It clings to the spoon like wet moss, glistening faintly in the torchlight. A few feet away, another guest is applying what looks like ground-up lavender petals mixed with something white and chalky, perhaps crushed eggshells or powdered limestone. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were based on real medicinal knowledge or if they were mostly placebo, crafted more for their symbolic value than actual healing properties. But here, in this steam-filled chamber, nobody seems concerned about clinical trials. They trust tradition, and right now, tradition wants you to smear this mystery goo across your chest. So you do. The paste is cold at first, but quickly warms against your skin. It tingles slightly, not unpleasantly, and within moments, your sinuses feel oddly open, like you've just stepped outside after a rainstorm. Maybe there's something to this after all. Nearby, a woman is rubbing a mixture of beeswax and crushed rose petals onto her face, humming softly as she works it into her skin. Another man is massaging his temples with something that smells strongly of camphor and pine resin. Across the room, a servant walks past, carrying a tray of small vials filled with oils labeled only by color. Green for energy, red for passion, black for sleep. You wonder briefly what's in the black one. A child runs by, chasing a wooden hoop, nearly slipping on the damp floor before grabbing onto a pillar to steady himself. Someone laughs. Another person dips a ladle into a bucket and pours cool water over their head with a sigh of relief. There's a rhythm to this place, a gentle pulse of life that feels oddly meditative, and yet beneath the calm surface, there are layers of ritual, superstition, and science, blurred together in ways that modern medicine would probably raise an eyebrow at. Some of these treatments have roots in ancient herbalism, passed down through generations. Others are pure folklore, designed more to impress than to heal. Either way, they're part of the experience. As you sit there, slowly becoming less aware of your lack of clothing and more aware of the strange, soothing effects of whatever you just slathered on yourself, you realize something. This isn't just a bathhouse. It's a laboratory of relaxation, where every scent, every texture, every whispered remedy carries centuries of knowledge, or at least centuries of belief. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You let the herbal paste settle into your skin. It's a cooling effect, spreading slowly through your chest like a gentle wave. The air around you feels lighter now, somehow, less dense, more breathable. Whether it's the salve or just the sheer absurdity of the situation relaxing your mind, you can't be sure. But what you can be sure of is that this place isn't divided by class. You glance around again, really taking in the people who share this warm communal space with you. There's the man with the dragon tattoo, lounging nearby with his eyes closed, looking thoroughly relaxed. There's a young boy splashing in the shallow pool, laughing as he tries to dunk his friend. There's a noblewoman reclining on a cushioned bench, her silk robe draped carefully beside her. And not far from her, a merchant sits with his arms resting on his knees, chatting casually with a farmer who smells faintly of hay and sweat. It's strange how easily they mix here. In the outside world, these people might never even acknowledge each other. Here, they're shoulder to shoulder, soaking together like old friends. Bathing like royalty doesn't mean being royalty. It means sharing in the same luxury, at least for a little while. Historians still argue whether this mingling was purely practical or if it had deeper social implications. Some believe that public bathhouses helped break down class barriers, offering a rare space where nobles and peasants could interact as equals. Others suggest that it was simply a matter of necessity. After all, bathing facilities weren't exactly common in private homes, so everyone, regardless of status, had to go somewhere to clean themselves. Either way, it makes for an interesting atmosphere. You watch as the noblewoman gestures toward the younger man beside her, her son perhaps, and offers him a small wooden cup filled with something steaming. He accepts it with a nod and sips cautiously, his expression unreadable. Nearby, the merchant and the farmer are deep in discussion about grain prices, their voices low but animated. You try to imagine walking into a modern-day public bathhouse and finding billionaires sitting next to construction workers, nurses chatting with politicians, celebrities lounging beside school teachers. You'd either call the press or immediately turn around and walk right back out. But here, in this steam-filled chamber, it somehow feels normal, maybe even peaceful. You find yourself wondering what your own place would be in this world. Would you blend in? Would you stand out? Would anyone care? Probably not, because here, stripped literally and figuratively of your usual markers of identity, you're just another body in the water, just another soul seeking warmth, comfort, and maybe a little human connection. And for once, that feels strangely freeing. You lean back against the warm stone wall, letting the last of the herbal paste dry on your chest like some forgotten relic of medieval skincare. The mingled scents of lavender, sulfur, and roasted almonds swirl around you, creating a bizarre but oddly pleasant perfume that somehow feels both medicinal and indulgent. Just as you begin to drift off into that half-asleep state that only warm water and soft music can bring, someone appears beside you, holding a tray. You blink, expecting another cup of mulled wine, or perhaps another facial mask of questionable origin. Instead, they hold out a small glass bottle filled with something dark brown and murky looking. For circulation, they say with a smile. You stare at the bottle, then at them, then back at the bottle. You want me to drink this? You ask, voice slightly higher than usual. No, they correct gently. We'll apply it elsewhere. And just like that, you realize things are about to get weird. Your new attendant sets the bottle aside and reaches for a different item, a small wooden paddle covered in fine bristles. Before you can ask what it's for, they begin brushing your back in long, rhythmic strokes. It's rough at first, like being scrubbed with a broom made of feathers. But after a few minutes, your skin starts to tingle, and the sensation becomes oddly soothing. It's almost like a massage, except instead of hands, it's a brush made of animal hair and wood. You glance around and notice others undergoing similar treatments. One man is getting what looks like a full-body exfoliation using crushed walnut shells. Another is having warm oil poured over his head in slow, deliberate streams. And somewhere across the room, someone is lying flat on their back while a servant applies leeches to their neck. You blink. Yes, leeches. Historians still argue whether bloodletting was actually believed to cure ailments, or if it was just a convenient way to make patients feel like something was being done, even if it wasn't helpful. Regardless, it was wildly popular in the medieval world, often used to treat everything from headaches to melancholy to bad luck, and apparently it was also available at the bathhouse. You watch as the leeches begin to swell, their tiny mouths latching onto the man's skin with unsettling efficiency. He doesn't flinch, doesn't grimace, just lies there, eyes closed, breathing deeply like this is perfectly normal. Maybe it is. After your back scrub, the attendant moves on to the next phase of your treatment, a poultice of heated herbs pressed directly onto your shoulders. It's warm, slightly damp, and smells strongly of thyme and something earthier, possibly moldy cabbage. You inhale deeply. It's not terrible. In fact, it feels kind of good. They wrap the poultice in cloth and leave it there for a few minutes, letting the heat sink into your muscles. Meanwhile, another servant approaches with the bottle you were eyeing earlier and begins pouring the contents, some kind of thick, oily liquid, onto your legs. You wrinkle your nose. It smells like onions. Oh yes, the attendant says, noticing your reaction. Good for inflammation. You don't argue. At this point, arguing feels pointless. If you've survived the facial, the hand kiss, and the communal nudity, you can survive onion oil. And honestly, it does feel nice. The warmth spreads slowly through your limbs, loosening knots you didn't even know you had. Your entire body feels heavier now, like it's sinking deeper into the stone bench beneath you. Somewhere nearby, a woman is getting massaged with hot stones, actual river stones that have been warmed over a fire and placed strategically along her spine. Another man is receiving a foot soak in a basin filled with crushed garlic and vinegar. You wonder briefly if any of this is actually healthy, or if you're just too relaxed to care. Either way, you decide to stop questioning things and just enjoy the ride. After all, you came here for history, and you're definitely getting it. You lie there, sticky with onion oil and vaguely smelling like a medieval soup pot, trying to remember what your original concerns were when you walked into this place. Was it the nudity? No, that faded hours ago. The awkward hand-kissing greeting, that stopped being weird after the second round of mulled wine. Even the leeches, okay, especially the leeches, have lost some of their shock factor. Now, as you sit in the warm water, your muscles loose and your mind drifting somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, you realize that the biggest surprise of all might not be the treatments or the traditions. It's the women. Not because they're here. That much you've already accepted. It's because of how powerful they seem. Historians still argue whether medieval bathhouses were truly egalitarian spaces or if gender roles still played out behind the scenes. But here, in this warm, steam-filled chamber, it's hard to deny what you're seeing. Women aren't just guests. They're business owners, servants, attendants, healers, storytellers, and in some cases, they're the ones running the show. Across the room, a woman in her 30s is giving instructions to a group of younger attendants, her voice firm but calm. She wears a simple linen tunic, her hair braided tightly against her scalp, and she moves with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what she's doing. Nearby, another woman is massaging the shoulders of a nobleman, her fingers working skillfully through the knots in his back. He closes his eyes and lets out a contented sigh, clearly enjoying the attention. And just a few feet away, a mother is gently washing her daughter's hair, whispering something into her ear that makes the girl giggle. This isn't just a place for men to unwind. It's a space where women thrive. You think back to the stories you've heard about medieval Europe. The idea that women were kept out of public life, confined to the home, denied access to education and power. And yet, here they are, running the bathhouse, making decisions, giving orders, and occasionally making jokes that would make a sailor blush. One woman nearby is telling a story to a group of listeners, her voice rich with humor and sarcasm. She gestures dramatically as she speaks, pausing for effect before delivering the punchline, which sends a ripple of laughter through the room. You catch bits of the tale, something involving a priest, a barrel of wine, and a misunderstanding that ended with someone locked in a storage closet. It's unclear how much of it is true, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that she's commanding the room, and nobody seems surprised by it. You glance around again, letting your gaze sweep over the bathhouse. Women of all ages are present, some lounging quietly, some chatting, some working, some playing with children. None of them seem out of place. None of them seem afraid. And none of them seem to need permission to be here. You take a deep breath, letting the warm air fill your lungs. Maybe the medieval world wasn't as rigid as you thought. Maybe in places like this, women found ways to carve out space for themselves. And maybe, just maybe, that's one of the most fascinating parts of the whole experience. You stretch your arms above your head, feeling the warmth settle deeper into your muscles, and let out a slow breath. The bathhouse has wrapped you in its embrace like a heavy blanket, comforting, familiar, and utterly intoxicating. And just when you think you've reached peak relaxation, someone sets a plate of food down beside you. You blink. Is this for me? The attendant nods. Of course, you must be hungry by now. You glance at the plate. It's filled with slices of fruit, hunks of soft cheese, and small pieces of bread soaked in olive oil. Next to it, a small clay bowl holds something creamy, perhaps a dip made from crushed walnuts and yogurt. It smells delicious. You weren't expecting a full meal. But then again, why wouldn't there be food? If this place is meant for relaxation, for socializing, for healing, then of course people would eat here. And judging by the number of people snacking around you, they do it often. Historians still argue whether food and drink in bathhouses were primarily for enjoyment or if they served a medicinal purpose. Some suggest that certain foods, like honey, figs, and spiced wines, were believed to enhance the effects of the baths, helping the body absorb warmth and relax more fully. Others believe it was simply a matter of hospitality. After all, what's a good soak without a little sustenance? You pick up a slice of apple and take a bite. It's crisp, sweet, and slightly tart, perfect for cutting through the heaviness of the warm air. You follow it with a piece of bread soaked in olive oil, savoring the richness on your tongue. Across the room, a couple shares a platter of roasted nuts and dried dates, passing pieces back and forth with easy familiarity. A group of men nearby are drinking from wooden cups, laughing loudly over something one of them just said. And near the entrance, a servant walks past carrying a large tray piled high with steaming bowls of stew, thick, hearty, and fragrant with spices. You weren't expecting dinner tonight, but here it is, and it's surprisingly good. You glance around again, taking in the scene. People are eating, drinking, talking, laughing, all while soaking in warm water, wrapped in nothing but steam and conversation. It's surreal, and yet, somehow, it makes perfect sense. Food has always been a part of human connection. It brings people together, fuels conversations, and turns casual gatherings into memorable experiences. Here, in this medieval bathhouse, it's no different. Only instead of dining tables and chairs, there are benches and pools. Instead of forks and knives, there are fingers and wooden spoons. And instead of background music, there's the distant sound of a lute playing somewhere beyond the archway. You take another bite of bread, dipping it into the creamy mixture on your plate. And somewhere, deep in the recesses of your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe the best meals aren't the ones served on fancy plates. Maybe they're the ones shared in warm water, surrounded by laughter and history. The last bite of bread disappears into your mouth, leaving behind only the lingering taste of olive oil and something nutty. You set the empty plate aside and lean back against the warm stone wall, letting your eyelids droop slightly as the weight of the bathhouse settles over you like a thick, comfortable fog. And then, just as you begin to drift off into that hazy, half-awake state that only warm water and good food can bring, music fills the air. Soft at first, barely more than a whisper of strings plucking gently in the distance. Then louder, more defined, a lute. And not just any lute, a skilled player, coaxing notes from the instrument with practiced ease, weaving melodies that curl through the steam like ribbons of smoke. You blink, startled awake by the sudden shift in atmosphere. The hum of conversation hasn't stopped, but now it's accompanied by something else, something playful, something alive. Someone nearby clears their throat, and then a voice rises in song, deep, rich, and slightly off-key, but full of heart. It's the man with the dragon tattoo. He's singing a tune you don't recognize, but the rhythm is unmistakable. Folkish, bawdy. Something meant to be shouted in taverns or sung around campfires after too much wine. A few people chuckle. Another joins in, harmonizing with surprising skill. Soon, more voices join the chorus, blending together in a warm, drunken harmony that echoes off the stone walls. You listen, caught somewhere between amusement and awe, because this isn't just music, it's performance. And it's happening right here, in the middle of a medieval bathhouse, where people are naked, soaking, eating, and laughing like this is the most normal thing in the world, which for them, it probably is. Historians still argue whether music in bathhouses was purely for entertainment or if it had deeper cultural significance. Some suggest that songs were used to mark time, to tell stories, to pass down legends that couldn't be written down. Others believe that music was simply a part of the experience, an essential ingredient in the recipe for relaxation. Either way, it's working. You close your eyes again, letting the melody wash over you. The lute plays on, steady and soothing, while the singers continue their ballad, something about a knight, a stolen chicken, and a very angry nun. Laughter ripples through the room. Someone claps. A child splashes in the water, adding their own spontaneous percussion to the performance. And somewhere nearby, a woman starts tapping out a rhythm on the edge of her wooden cup, turning the moment into something communal, something shared. You feel it in your chest, the vibration of sound, the warmth of company, the strange, surreal joy of being here. This isn't just a bathhouse anymore. It's a stage, a gathering place, a living, breathing celebration of life. And as you sit there, listening to the music rise and fall like waves against the shore, you realize something. You don't want this to end. The music fades into a comfortable hum as the final notes of the lute linger in the air, mixing with the ever-present scent of herbs and warm water. The singers have gone quiet again, retreating into their own thoughts, their own corners of the bathhouse. The laughter has softened, replaced by the occasional murmur or sigh of contentment. And yet, despite the calm, despite the warmth, despite the fact that you're currently floating in what feels like the most luxurious bathtub in history, you can't help but wonder, are you actually doing something good for your health? Or are you just getting drunk, naked, and covered in random substances in a building that may or may not have proper plumbing? You glance around again, watching as attendants move gracefully between guests, offering oils, lotions, and the occasional herbal paste that smells like it was brewed in a witch's cauldron. Everyone seems happy, relaxed, even rejuvenated. But is any of this actually good for you? Historians still argue whether medieval bathhouses were legitimate centers of health, or if they were just glorified party spots with better lighting. Some records suggest that doctors of the time prescribed bathing for a wide range of ailments, from gout to melancholy to poor digestion. Others warn that excessive bathing could weaken the body, opening the door to disease and imbalance. Conflicting advice, much like today's endless debates over coffee, intermittent fasting, and whether avocados are actually good for you. You sip from your cup of mulled wine, letting the warmth spread through your chest as you consider the evidence. On one hand, warm water does wonders for sore muscles. Steam opens up the sinuses. Massage improves circulation. These are basic physiological truths understood even in the medieval world. On the other hand, you glance toward the pool again, where someone is enthusiastically dunking their head under the water like they're trying to drown themselves for therapeutic reasons. And somewhere nearby, a man is getting what looks suspiciously like a herbal enema. You try not to stare. Still, despite the occasional questionable practice, there's something undeniably soothing about this place. The combination of heat, hydration, and human connection creates a kind of natural therapy that modern spas spend millions trying to replicate. Perhaps that's the secret. Not the leeches, not the onion oil, not even the dubious facial masks. Just the simple act of slowing down, letting go, being present, and for a brief, fleeting moment, forgetting about the rest of the world. You lean back against the warm stone wall, closing your eyes as the sounds of the bathhouse blend into a soft, sleepy rhythm. A lute player plucks a gentle tune. Water sloshes softly in the pools. Voices murmur in the distance. And somewhere, deep in the recesses of your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe hygiene is health, or maybe it's just the illusion of it. Either way, you feel better, and for now, that's enough. You stir slightly, the warmth of the bathhouse settling deeper into your bones, like a slow, creeping tide. The music has faded again, replaced by the soft murmur conversation and the occasional splash of water. Somewhere nearby, someone is laughing at a joke you didn't quite catch, and for a moment, you let the sound wash over you like a lullaby. And then, just beneath the surface of the warmth and comfort, you catch a whisper, something about plague, about rumors, about moral panic. You tilt your head slightly, straining to hear more. The voices are low, cautious, but the tone is unmistakable, concern. They say the bath spreads sickness, one person murmurs. Another scoffs, only if you stay too long. A third voice cuts in, quieter than the rest. I heard a monk died last week, after a visit here. You freeze, the warmth suddenly feeling less comforting, more oppressive. It's easy to forget, in the haze of mulled wine and herbal pastes, that this era is not your own. That medicine is still a blend of superstition and guesswork. That diseases spread faster than rumors. That even the safest seeming places can carry unseen dangers. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were truly responsible for outbreaks, or if they were simply blamed for things they couldn't control. Some records suggest that during times of plague, public baths were among the first places to be shut down, seen as breeding grounds for contagion. Others argue that the real danger lay not in the water itself, but in the crowds, the closeness, the shared towels and communal cups. And then there's the scandal. Because of course, there is scandal. You glance around again, noticing how some people keep their voices low, how others avoid certain topics altogether. There's a tension beneath the surface, subtle but real. Bathhouses have always been places of intimacy, both physical and emotional. And where there's intimacy, there's gossip, stories of affairs, of forbidden meetings, of lovers who met in the steam and disappeared together before dawn. Some of it is surely exaggerated. Some of it, perhaps, is true. You remember the noble woman you saw earlier, reclining on her cushioned bench, elegant and composed. What would people say about her if they knew more? Would they whisper about her choices, her secrets, her past? You sip from your cup of mulled wine, letting the warmth distract you from the growing unease. Because here's the thing. Bathhouses have always walked a fine line between virtue and vice, between health and hedonism, between cleanliness and corruption. And in a world where morality is constantly shifting, where rules are made and broken depending on who's in charge, it's hard to know where the truth lies. You glance toward the entrance, where a new group of visitors has just arrived. Their faces are flushed from the cold outside, their voices bright with anticipation. They haven't heard the rumors yet, having felt the weight of the stories that linger in the corners of this place. For now, they're just here to relax, to soak, to enjoy, and maybe, just maybe, that's all any of you should be doing. You lean back again, letting the warmth return, pushing the doubts to the back of your mind. Because for all the risks, for all the whispers, for all the warnings, this place still feels like peace, and maybe that's worth a little uncertainty. You exhale slowly, letting the last of the unease slip away, like mist rising from the surface of the warm pool. The rumors, the whispers, the vague sense of impending doom, they fade into the background, replaced once again by the steady rhythm of the bathhouse. Laughter, splashing, music, conversation, all of it wraps around you like a warm, familiar blanket. But now, as you sit there, the question creeps in uninvited. What happens next? Because eventually, even the most relaxing bath must end. And when it does, you'll have to leave. You glance around, scanning for signs of departure. Sure enough, a few people are beginning to rise from their benches, stretching their limbs, shaking out their limbs, wiping the last traces of oil from their skin. One man stands, grabs a small wooden token from a pile near the exit, and heads toward a curtained doorway, presumably where his belongings are stored. Another woman dries herself off with a rough linen towel, wrapping it loosely around her waist before stepping barefoot onto the stone floor. You look down at yourself, still sticky with various herbal pastes, still wearing nothing but your dignity. And suddenly, you realize you have no idea how to re-enter society. There's no locker room, no shampoo, no fresh clothes waiting neatly folded on a shelf. Just a small wooden rack where your belongings were left upon arrival, likely stacked haphazardly alongside those of dozens of other guests. You glance toward the rack, trying to spot your items amid the chaos. There's a tangle of cloaks, belts, and boots, a stack of folded tunics, a pair of mismatched socks, and somewhere in there, hopefully, your own clothes, assuming nobody took them by mistake or on purpose. Historians still argue whether theft was common in bathhouses or if it was just a convenient excuse to complain about strangers. Either way, you approach the rack with caution, scanning for anything that looks familiar. There it is, your shirt, slightly damp from the humidity, your trousers, folded, sort of, and your shoes tucked underneath like they're hiding. You breathe a sigh of relief, and then the real challenge begins. Getting dressed in a room full of strangers who are also getting dressed. You glance around, realizing that modesty has officially returned to the equation. People are moving with purpose now, covering themselves with towels or cloaks as they prepare to step back into the world. You grab your shirt, and pull it over your head, wincing slightly as the fabric sticks to the remnants of the herbal paste still clinging to your skin. Next, your trousers, then your belt, and finally, your shoes. Still slightly damp, still slightly uncomfortable, but yours. You tie the laces with stiff fingers, feeling oddly disconnected from your own body. Because for a little while, you were just another body in the water. Now, you're back to being a person, with responsibilities, with expectations, with a world waiting outside. You glance around one last time, taking in the scene. The man with the dragon tattoo is gone. The lute player has packed up. The noblewoman is dressing quietly, her expression unreadable. And the attendant who kissed your hand earlier catches your eye from across the room. She smiles. You smile back. And then, with one final deep breath, you step out of the bathhouse and into the cold night air. The city awaits. But for a moment, you pause, because somewhere deep in your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe you didn't survive. Maybe you just changed. The cold air hits your skin like a slap, sharp and sudden, pulling you fully out of the warm, dreamlike haze of the bathhouse. You shiver involuntarily, drawing your cloak tighter around your shoulders as you take a slow, deep breath. The city stretches out before you, dimly lit, bustling with late-night merchants and wandering musicians, the occasional bark of a dog echoing through the narrow streets. The smell of wood smoke and damp stone fills your nostrils, grounding you in reality after hours of lavender oil, mulled wine, and whispered stories. You glance back at the bathhouse, its wooden doors still swinging slightly from your exit. Inside, laughter continues, the lute plays on, and the warm water still laps gently at the edges of the pools. Life goes on in there, uninterrupted. Out here, though, the world feels different, larger, busier, less forgiving. You take a step forward, then another, letting your feet guide you down the cobbled street. The uneven stones press against the soles of your still damp shoes, reminding you that you're not dreaming. This is real. And yet, as you walk, you carry something with you. Not just the lingering scent of herbs on your skin, not just the memory of warm water and soft music, but a quiet understanding that history isn't just about wars and kings and revolutions. Sometimes it's about the everyday, about the places people went to relax, about the rituals they built into their lives to soothe their minds and bodies, about the laughter, the music, the quiet moments of connection that happened in warm rooms filled with steam and stories. You glance up at the sky, where the stars are just beginning to peek through the haze of the city. The moon hangs low, casting a silver glow over the rooftops. And somewhere, deep in the recesses of your mind, a thought drifts through. Maybe the past isn't so different from the present. Maybe people at their core have always wanted the same things: comfort, connection, a little bit of peace, and sometimes, just sometimes, a warm bath and a glass of wine. You slow your pace, letting the rhythm of your steps match the gentle beat of your heartbeat. The city fades around you, replaced by the soft hush of your own thoughts. And as you walk further into the night, the lights of the bathhouse glowing faintly behind you, you feel something settle inside you. Not exhaustion, not confusion, not even nostalgia, just calm. A deep, quiet calm. And somewhere, In the distance, the sound of a lute plays on, fading slowly into the night. The sound of the lute grows softer, carried away by the night breeze. The city around you blurs into a quiet hum, the footsteps of passers-by fading into the rhythm of your own breath. You exhale slowly, and with each breath, the weight of the day slips away. The bathhouse, with all its warmth and laughter, feels like a dream now, a memory wrapped in steam and music, held close like the last embers of a dying fire. You walk on, guided by instinct rather than direction. The streets are familiar in the way that dreams often are, half remembered, gently shifting, never quite solid. And as you move through the night, a final thought drifts through your mind. History is not just about battles won and lost. It's not just about crowns and conquests. It's about moments like this, about people who lived, laughed, soaked in warm water, and told stories under flickering torchlight. About the things that connect us across centuries, about the simple, enduring pleasure of kindness, of community. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the night wrap around you like a familiar blanket. And as you do, the world slows. The stars shimmer, the wind whispers, and somewhere, far away, a lute plays the final note of the evening. Good night, sweet dreams,